We are, on the one hand, moral creatures which are able to imbue everything that we experience with moral values, and on the other hand, we're human beings who really want to survive. And this desire to further our biological processes, well, that's where society comes in. As most people on the internet seem to be aware of, we live in a society. And while living in a society, it makes sense to think about living in a society, making sense of it, realizing how to deal with that in a productive manner, right? So let's talk what is a society. That may now not be the dictionary definition, but I believe that society is always an aggregate of people that are interacting with one another. So whenever even two people meet and interact with one another, they are a society of two. So I believe that it's completely practically impossible to not live in a society while living in proximity to other people. And that, of course, brings issues because we are not other people. And we are very certain that things are supposed to go our way. So when when being in a society, we can think about what our job is in this society. I've talked about it in my last video, but maybe I haven't gotten the point across quite yet. So a society is always corrupt. It's the idea is to get a group of people together which are trying to achieve the same goals, mainly survival, and when this is achieved, stability, etc. Usually high ideals are involved in this endeavor. We will make the people equal. We will have them all have the same opportunities, and by God, they will be happy. However, that's where the corruption comes in. As society is created by people and people are imperfect beings, society can never reach those ideals that it is set out to. So there's this issue of wanting to be something and really not being that, and people getting disillusioned with the whole idea. But we can just keep in mind that that's just the basic situation of our existence on this earth. So every institution is always imperfect, and we just got to deal with that. The priority of such a system that has these noble pursuits, namely survival, stability, equality, happiness, maybe even. The issue with that is that such a system can never actually have any of those ideals as its top priority. The top priority of such a system will always be to keep the system itself alive and well so that it can provide for its participants, citizens, these ideals that it has promised them. Because without the system, well, the system couldn't provide these ideals, now would it? And so the high goals, the high aspirations of these systems always are getting on the second burner as the top priority suddenly becomes stability within itself. And anything that threatens the stability, as can be seen in any authoritarian state or America in the 60s, well, they just get disappeared, don't they? Because it's much more practical to do that from the perspective of these flawed systems. To that I say, well, that's a valid perspective to have. You're existing in a system and the system is imperfect, and of course it would be a great idea to just tear it down and figure something out that is much more helpful and actually beneficial towards serenity and inner peace. But we don't seem to be there. So I say that as long as we indeed live in this form of society, well, the highest thing that we can do is try to deal with that. And that is a very rational top priority. If you want the good, then it should be your priority. If you want stability, if you want a strong foundation on which you can build. Because when you're not stable in your life, when you're standing on shaky ground, then you won't achieve anything in your life anyway, because anything you try to build on this foundation will always get torn down. So the most important thing for an individual living in a society is not to keep the society alive, to prop it up, and to give themselves up towards this greater good, but to give themselves up towards the good, to be willing to challenge their ideas and beliefs towards reaching the good. because that is actually always good, while keeping a society still standing is not always good. It's like survival is not always good. If you're depressed and want to die, then survival is not always good. Now, the good, on the other hand, is always good. So it makes more sense to do the good than to just try to survive. And so is our relationship with society. We are, on the one hand, moral creatures which are able to imbue everything that we experience with moral values. And on the other hand, we're human beings who really want to survive. And this desire to further our biological processes, well, that's where society comes in. Because ape together strong. And we are very much more likely to survive if we are alongside other people. The answer is not a hut alone in the woods. You may be as the Unabomber if you want to, but I'm advising against that, as it's just learning to deal with the situation that you're in. You can never you can never manage to outrun yourself, because wherever you are, you will always have yourself. And if you're satisfied with that, then no storm may ever shake you. However, if you're not satisfied with that, even the slightest wind may blow you over. So it's not about trying to use resentment and resistance towards the way things are to change stuff. It's about just learning to deal with the terribly flawed system that we were born into, and try to make the best of it. Try to make the good of it, if nothing else. Because what do we have to lose by doing that? Absolutely nothing. But what do we have to gain? The good, which is a great argument for actually dealing with things in a positive way. And that was my We Live in a Society rant. And that was my Joker laugh. So keep it tight, people. Gendered language. I love all of you. Bye.